and Committee Rule 14B. Without objection, the chair may recess the committee at any point. Today, the committee will mark up two important pieces of legislation. The first is H.R. 6359, the Pregnant Students' Rights Act, which addresses a simple but serious problem. Too many pregnant students don't know what help is available to them. Under Title IX, pregnant students are entitled to reasonable accommodations, such as excused absences for medical appointments and childbirth, but too often students are given incorrect or incomplete information regarding their rights. The Pregnant Students' Rights Act would change this. It requires colleges and universities to clearly inform students of their rights under Title IX and to provide a list of on-campus and community resources that can help an expectant mother through pregnancy, childbirth, and parenting without forcing her to put her education on hold. It also explains how students can file a complaint with the Department of Education or the student's school if she believes she has been discriminated against due to her pregnancy. Colleges and universities have a responsibility to ensure every pregnant student feels supported in continuing her education. With less than a month until the annual March for Life in our nation's capital, I'm proud to lead this committee in supporting pregnant students and their children. I'd like to thank the sponsor of the bill, Representative Ashley Hinson, for her leadership on this issue for the Third Congress. The second bill before us is H.R. 4307, the Enhancing Detection of Human Trafficking Act. This bipartisan bill, authored by me and Congresswoman Lucy McBath, will strengthen the Department of Labor's ability to combat human trafficking and protect vulnerable adults and children. Specifically, ensures DOL enforcement personnel are trained to recognize the signs of trafficking, have the tools they need to detect forced labor and sexual exploitation during workplace investigations, and have a clear process for coordinating with law enforcement. It also requires an annual report to Congress, helping guide the committee's oversight and strengthen future enforcement efforts. With that, I yield to the ranking member for an opening statement.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and Happy New Year. I hope everyone has had a peaceful and joyous holiday season and look forward to getting back to work to bring down costs and tackle the issues facing Americans. This morning we're considering two bills. The first bill fails to provide resources to all pregnant students and jeopardizes women's reproductive health. The second is a bipartisan bill combating human trafficking. First bill we'll discuss today, the Pregnant Students' Rights Act, purportedly requires schools to provide pregnant students with information on resources on campus and in the community and on accommodations to assist them in carrying a baby to term while they are pursuing their education. While on the face this may seem innocuous, upon further inspection it is far from innocuous. In 2022, the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade and triggered a series of state-sanctioned abortion bans which have created a complicated web of legal challenges for health providers and patients seeking comprehensive reproductive care. Now the House Republicans want to further limit students' access to information about available resources, including all accommodations and protections available to pregnant or parenting students on college campus. This is incomplete information, not the complete information that the chairman just suggested. Instead of sharing unbiased and comprehensive information, this bill requires colleges and universities to distribute only partial information about students' existing rights under Title IX, as well as selective information on resources that solely encourage students to carry a pregnancy to term. And furthermore, it provides no information for those who want to bring a pregnancy to term, but for medical complications, an abortion may be medically indicated. Pregnant students already face numerous challenges on campus, including navigating medical attention, emotional support and mental health needs, financial and food security, and academic difficulties, just to name a few, by requiring institutions of higher education to only share information that encourages students to carry a pregnancy to term. Pregnant students are being deprived of resources and information to help them to make informed decisions, as well as options to address complicated medical needs. As a result, by keeping students in the dark about their rights and all available health resources, the bill could unduly endanger a pregnant student's health. For example, legislation fails to require schools to inform students about contraception, which could help students avoid unplanned pregnancies. It fails to require schools to inform students about full rights under existing civil rights laws, or resources for those experiencing a miscarriage, or information about medical resources available which might be necessary for high-risk pregnancies, or vital information about rights and resources if a student needs to make a decision to terminate a pregnancy. Women should be able to control these decisions, and by shielding students from healthcare information, resources, and rights that may be available to them, Republicans are denying them the choice to decide what is best for them and their families. Moreover, the bill fails to provide pregnant and parenting students with any new rights or resources that would actually support them, such as child care assistance or affordable health care. Additionally, if a student decides to carry a child to term, this bill would not even provide them with information about how to sign up for Medicaid or SNAP or WIC. Additionally, while we're debating the bill, the Trump administration and Republicans have made historic cuts in safety net programs that help new parents. For example, in that big, ugly bill, there was a cut of about $1 trillion from health care, food assistance, and student loan programs. And earlier this year, the administration cut funding for several C-campus programs, which help colleges provide child care services for student parents because the program employs a diverse workforce. The President's fiscal 26 budget also proposes zeroing out funding for this program, and taken together, these cuts are deeply harmful to families and do not set pregnant students up for success. And lastly, the legislation requires colleges to provide information about how a pregnant student can file a complaint with the Department of Education if the school violates their rights under Title IX. This is particularly insulting, considering that the Trump administration, in their efforts to dismantle the Department of Education, has cut over half the staff and closed 7 of the 12 regional offices of the Office of Civil Rights, an agency responsible for enforcing pregnant students' rights under Title IX. Requiring schools to provide pregnant students with information about resources being cut and rights that may not be enforceable is not a serious proposal. For these reasons, I'll vote no on the bill and urge my colleagues to do the same. Next, we will consider the Enhancing Detection of Human Trafficking Act, led by you, Mr. Chairman, and Gentlelady from Georgia, Ms. McBath. This bipartisan bill formally requires the Department of Labor to continue training staff to spot and report human trafficking. Now, Wage and Hour Division inspectors, for example, have long been trained to identify red flags for human trafficking, including such things as confiscation of identification, withholding of documents or pay, restrictions of movement or communications with employees, and threats, and no one should be forced to work under these threats, abuse, or coercion. This proposal will ensure that the Department of Labor continues this vital work, and I support the proposal and encourage my colleagues to do the same. But it is worth noting that this proposal does not make federal investments to combat worker exploitation or support staffing increases necessary to protect workers. Given that this administration is currently seeking to cut staff and resources at the very agencies tasked with stopping human trafficking, and has repeatedly made immigrant communities less safe by pushing victims either further into the shadows, much more federal investment and oversight is needed. Today, I understand that the gentleman from California, Mr. DeSaulnier, will offer an amendment to ensure that the Bureau of International Labor Affairs, ILAB, is authorized. This is necessary because President Trump's fiscal 26 budget would cut ILAB funding by 38%. We should all support Mr. DeSaulnier's amendment. So I look forward to continuing the work with my colleagues across the aisle to do more to protect programs that stop human trafficking. And finally, I'd like to say that I'm profoundly disappointed that so far in this Congress, this committee has not taken the time to address the dismantling of the Department of Education, the Trump administration's relentless attacks on workers' rights, or the Affordable Care Act premium tax credits that just skyrocketed for millions of Americans. And, Mr. Chairman, I'm renewing my request for the appearance of Health and Human Services Secretary Robert Kennedy Jr. before this committee. His failure to appear before this committee is an affront to our constitutional oversight authority and a devaluation of our jurisdiction over that department. So I hope that in 2026 we can work together to fix these issues for the sake of the American people. And thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I yield back.
I thank the gentleman. Without objection, all other members who wish to insert written opening statements into the record may do so by submitting them to the committee clerk electronically by the end of the day today. Pursuant to House rules, a copy of the text to be marked up was made available to members and the public at least 24 hours in advance. The bills being marked up today shall be open to amendment at any point, and the chair will allow members to offer amendments in a manner not prohibited by House or committee rules. Without objection, members who have more than one amendment to the bills and wish to offer their amendments en bloc may do so. The committee now will proceed to consideration of the bill H.R. 6359 for amendment. The bill was circulated in advance and printed copies are available. The clerk shall designate the bill.
H.R. 6359, a bill to require institutions of higher education to disseminate information on the rights of and accommodations and resources for pregnant students and for other purposes.
Without objection, the first reading of the bill is dispensed with. Without objection, the bill will be considered as read and open for amendment at any point, and any amendment offered shall be considered as read. Does anyone seek to be recognized? Representative Miller, for what purpose do you seek recognition?
Mr. Chairman, I have an amendment at the desk titled ANS 02-02.
The clerk shall designate the amendment in the nature of a substitute.
Amendment in the nature of a substitute to H.R. 6359, offered by Ms. Miller of Illinois, identifier ANS_02.
Without objection, the amendment shall be considered original text for purposes of further amendment. The amendment in the nature of a substitute has already been distributed. I now recognize Ms. Miller for 5 minutes to explain the amendment in the nature of a substitute.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My amendment in the nature of a substitute makes one small technical change to the bill, but I'd like to speak on the bill's overall importance. Nearly 1 in 5 undergraduate students are raising children while enrolled in post-secondary education. Of these student parents, 74% are mothers. Yet these students should never be dissuaded from continuing their education. This is why I am supporting the Pregnant Students' Rights Act. Under this bill, colleges and universities must inform pregnant students of the rights, accommodations, and resources which are available to them. The bill also requires schools to remind these students how to file a complaint with the college or university if they are discriminated against for their decision to carry the baby to term. I am proud to support this bill, which empowers future parents who make the brave decision to embrace motherhood while continuing their education. Mr. Chairman, I ask that a letter of support from Susan B. Anthony, Pro-Life America, dated January 7th, 2026, and a letter of support from Students for Life Action, dated January 8th, 2026, be entered into the record. I urge my colleagues to support H.R. 6359, the Pregnant Students' Rights Act, and I yield back.
Without objection, the letters will be submitted. Hearing none. Are there any members who wish to be recognized for further discussion on the amendment in the nature of a substitute? Representative Scott, do you wish to be recognized?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I move to strike the last word.
You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This committee has tasked with some of the most important legislative work in Congress, especially when it comes to meeting the needs of our young people as they transition into adulthood. When it's faced, this bill may appear to ensure that students are informed of available resources and ways that students can continue to access their education while pregnant, but in fact, only outlines information on student rights and local resources to carry a pregnancy to term and not protect them if they have a medical complication that where an abortion may be indicated. In this end, the bill falls short and makes it more difficult for students to receive full and accurate information on their rights, including rights that are already protected under Title IX of the Education Amendments of 1972. That's why 48 organizations, such as the National Women's Law Center and the National Partnership for Women and Families, have raised serious concerns about the legislation, noting that the bill does not contain any meaningful supports that would actually help pregnant and parenting students to be able to remain enrolled and meet their educational goals. Now, we're considering this bill against the backdrop of the largest cuts in federal safety net programs in history in our country, with millions slated to lose access to health care and food assistance. We also know that we're in the midst of an affordability crisis, as individuals and families increasingly find it harder to pay for food, utilities, health care, and the roof over their heads, yet this bill does nothing to change that situation. Committee Democrats remain committed to ensure that all students, including those who choose to become parents, are set up for educational success, and much more needs to be done to support our nation's students, but this legislation doesn't do that. For these reasons, I oppose the amendment as well as the underlying bill and yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman yields. Thank you. Representative Harris, do you wish to be recognized?
Yes, to speak in favor of the bill.
You're recognized.
Too many young women on college campuses are led to believe that pregnancy means the end of their education, their dreams, or their future. And this is simply not true. This bill says that if a college receives federal education funding, it must be upfront with students about the rights, protections, and accommodations already available to pregnant students. We must give voice to the numerous resources that exist to help a woman carry her child to term and thrive in the following days. This can save lives and save a mom from heartbreak or trauma. We should be a nation that tells mothers, you are not alone. You are valued, and you do not have to choose between your child and your education. I hope my colleagues can support simply distributing information to women so they can make an informed decision. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I yield back.
Thank the gentleman. Are there any other members who wish to speak? Representative McBath, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate it. And thank you, Ranking Member Scott. I am hopeful that Congress can come together to find a bipartisan path to supporting all pregnant and parenting students without prioritizing certain students and types of care over others. But the Pregnant Students' Rights Act is unfortunately not this kind of legislation. I believe the bill we are considering is more about pressuring female students into making serious, deeply personal health decisions than it is about connecting pregnant and parenting students with resources that will help mothers safely carry and deliver a child, or parenting students raise a child after they are born, all while they continue to take classes. We should be using this time to mark up legislation that will actually support pregnant and parenting students, like the Understanding Student-Parent Outcomes Act introduced by me and my colleagues, Representatives Deborah Ross and Don Bacon, as well as the Helping Student Parents Succeed Act that I lead with an evenly divided bipartisan group of 10 members of the House. Instead of leveraging the very real needs of students and their families against the highly polarizing and personal topics of reproductive rights and abortion, we could be establishing best practices to improve graduation rates and help pregnant and parenting Americans stay in school and avoid dropping out with large amounts of debt and no degree to show for it. Practices like ensuring access to quality on-campus child care, clarifying make-up work policies, and providing appropriate accommodations for breastfeeding. The Helping Student Parents Succeed Act would accomplish exactly what the Pregnant Students' Rights Act aims to do without prioritizing any type of accommodation or service. My bill is specifically written in such a way to not prioritize certain resources over others and would connect pregnant and parenting students to programs that are already being offered at their school. It would not require schools to make any specific changes, just have them notify students of their school statement of policy and what resources that they can take advantage of to help them juggle school alongside a pregnancy, the loss of pregnancy, or parenting a child. Supporting pregnant and parenting students is a bipartisan effort, but the bill our colleagues have brought forth today does not seek to find common sense or consensus solutions. I don't believe the Pregnant Students' Rights Act has the bipartisan support necessary to cross the 60-vote threshold in the Senate, and without putting something together that can pass, we risk not helping anyone at all. We have an opportunity to pass something that will do all of the things that my Republican colleagues want to accomplish here today to help pregnant and parenting students without specifically trying to favor one side of one of the most sensitive issues in our society. I look forward to working with my colleagues across the aisle, as I always have, at the appropriate time to ensure that every pregnant student and every parent in school is given the support that they need to finish their degree, improve their career, and finally move into a higher income bracket that they have been dreaming of and working so hard towards. I will not be supporting this bill in its current form, but I do look forward to working with the chair and my Republican colleagues on finding a path to supporting pregnant and parenting students that most, if not all, members should be able to support. And I yield the balance of my time.
I thank the gentlelady. Are there any other members who wish to be recognized for discussion? Representative Kassar. Representative Under, do you wish to be recognized?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes.
You're recognized.
Mr. Chairman, I am so disappointed that my Democrat colleagues want to make this common sense bill all about abortion. With all due respect, one of my colleagues stated that this bill fails to give information about, quote, medical reasons abortions may be medically indicated or the complex medical needs of pregnant women. This is not something Title IX offices or even student health centers can do. Complex medical reasons that abortion may be indicated would be the realm of a high-risk obstetrical specialist. As Representative Miller stated, 1 in 5 students in higher education are either parents or are pregnant. This bill very simply requires colleges and universities to provide a list of resources, both on campus and community. It ensures colleges and universities provide information on students' rights under Title IX. This should be a non-controversial bill to help women further their education despite pregnancy and to face the challenges that might come along with pregnancy or motherhood or fatherhood. So I strongly support this bill. I would be very disappointed if this bill didn't pass out of this committee unanimously. But I appreciate the work of Representative Miller on this bill, as well as the bill sponsor, and I yield back.
I thank the gentleman. Representative Kassar, do you wish to be recognized?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Be recognized.
Mr. Chairman, I want to respond to the gentleman from the Republican majority that just spoke, asking about why this bill wouldn't pass unanimously. While there are accusations that the Democratic side is making this bill about abortion rights, nothing is further from the truth. As the sponsor, Republican sponsor of the bill just laid out, the primary groups pushing this bill forward are anti-abortion organizations. This bill isn't being pushed forward by organizations or academic institutions that want to support pregnant students or mothers and fathers in higher education. Those organizations and those folks that advocate for people that are trying to both raise children or have a child and stay in school know that what students need is paid leave from work, because so often these students are pulling a job and attending higher education. So what I am disappointed about is not being able to get support for paid leave from the Republican side of the aisle, or what these students ask for and need is childcare for their child while they also juggle their job and go to college. But we can't get support from the Republican side of the aisle for childcare for so many of these parents and students. What so many of these families bring up they need is to be able to have health care coverage for when it is that they have their child, both for childbirth and then taking care of that kid. But what we're facing from the Republican majority right now are the biggest cuts to health care in American history. And so we could have a unanimous bill if what we were coming here to do was to actually try to take care of moms and dads who are getting through higher education. But instead, what we have is an anti-abortion activist bill. And that's why you're going to get no's from the Democratic side, is because we want to support parents and parents-to-be in higher education. And what we're not trying to do is cloak our intentions with a bill that is trying to, for some anti-abortion advocates, going and trying to pressure oftentimes moms that already have kids in school about their choices. And so I look forward to voting for a bill that is not about pressuring people into not having abortions, pressuring people that are having abortions. I want a bill where we're talking about taking care of students and taking care of parents and parents-to-be. I yield back.
Gentleman yields. Thank you. I now recognize Representative Bonamici. Do you wish to? That will come, yeah. Any others wish to be recognized? I was going to make some comment about the freshest face on the committee. Welcome back in the new year, Representative Grijalva. Do you wish to speak on this?
Thank you, Chair. I do. I appreciate the time. You know, when you look at some of the titles, Pregnant Students' Rights Act sounds like something that we should all support. As a mom of 3 kids, you know, I think it's so critically important for us to provide these services. Unfortunately, this bill doesn't fix any of the problems that pregnant students and new parents are asking for. They're asking for help with childcare, healthcare, leave. What this does, and the mom, Nora, who came to our office, who's a student at Pima Community College, who came to advocate for the Department of Education's fully funding the C Campus grant, because that was the only reason that she was able to finish school. It's the only reason why her and her then 2-month-old child were able to advance their lives and give her an opportunity for a quality of life that she wouldn't be able to have without higher education. They came to our office asking for full funding because that program that helped her so much abruptly ended on 9/30/25 and has no indication of any future funding. So when we're talking about wanting to have bipartisan support for these kind of initiatives, I think it's important for us to really ask parents-to-be and new parents, what is it that they need? And what they need is childcare, healthcare, and leave. That's the kind of support they need, and I hope that our committee will start to work towards true solutions to help our communities. And I yield back.
I thank the gentlelady. Does the gentlelady from Florida, Ms. Wilson, wish to be recognized?
Mr. Chair, I move to strike the last word.
Representative Wilson, you're recognized.
As a woman who suffered a stillborn pregnancy and almost died before Roe v. Wade, and a former principal, school district administrator, and a school board member, supporting pregnant and parenting students is deeply important to me. But H.R. 6359 does not do what its title promises. Almost 4 years ago, after Roe v. Wade was overturned, Republicans continue their relentless campaign to restrict women's reproductive freedom, and this bill is the latest front in that effort. It narrowly steers students towards carrying a pregnancy to term while denying them full information about contraception, sexual and reproductive health, and on and off-campus resources for students who carry or terminate a pregnancy, even though Title IX protects all of them. H.R. 6359 cherry picks. They cherry pick which pregnant students count, requires institutions to promote only one outcome, and then explicitly blocks the Secretary of Education from ever requiring institutions to provide more comprehensive information for students. At the same time, Republicans are assigning new duties to the Secretary of Education while dismantling the Department of Education. What Secretary of Education? Where is this Secretary of Education going to be if we don't have a Department of Education? Is there going to be a Secretary of Education to comply with this bill if it becomes law? There's certainly not going to be an office for the civil rights, making it almost impossible for pregnant and parenting students to vindicate their rights under this bill or existing law. And while they claim to care about pregnant students, their so-called One Big Beautiful Bill Act guts the very programs student parents rely on campus child care and critical nutrition programs that help students and their children stay fed, not hungry, and helps them stay in school. That is not support, that is hypocrisy. For these reasons, I oppose this bill and urge my colleagues to reject this messaging bill and instead advance real solutions that respect students' bodily autonomy and provide genuine, comprehensive support for all pregnant and parenting students. And I yield back, Mr. Chair.
I thank the gentlelady. Are there any other members who wish to speak, discussion on this bill? There being no further discussion on the amendment in the nature of a substitute, the committee will move to consideration of amendments. For what purposes does the gentlelady from Oregon, Ms. Bonamici, seek to be recognized?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have an amendment at the desk.
The clerk will report the amendment.
Amendment to the amendment in the nature of a substitute to H.R. 6359, offered by Ms. Bonamici of Oregon, identifier Bonamici_AMD_01.
Is there a point of order to be reserved, Mr. Owens? A point of order is reserved. I now recognize the gentlelady from Oregon, Ms. Bonamici, for 5 minutes in support of the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I oppose this bill and the ANS in its current form because, among other reasons, what is required is incomplete and biased. It does not provide information about comprehensive family planning resources and a full range of reproductive health care options for pregnant students. Whether and when to have a child is a deeply personal decision that should not be made by politicians. My amendment would allow but not require institutions of higher education to provide medically accurate and comprehensive information and resources about all reproductive health services, including contraception and abortion. Title IX already prohibits institutes of higher education from taking retaliatory action against students and excluding them from educational programs and activities based on pregnancy or termination of pregnancy. And importantly, it requires schools to provide accommodations for missed work because of absences, because of pregnancy-related conditions. That is already part of Title IX. But as written, this Pregnant Students' Rights Act dictates the information it requires institutes of higher education to provide to students and the students it chooses to support, only students who carry a pregnancy to term. Again, my colleagues want to provide resources only for pregnant students who carry a baby to term. This bill fails to support any student with different pregnancy-related outcomes. Creating additional barriers by not providing the full range of reproductive health care options could hinder students' abilities to access relevant medical information and equitable educational opportunities. It could interfere with their college completion and graduation plans. And unfortunately, this anti-choice language in this bill will make it harder for students to make informed decisions about what is best for them in their own personal circumstance. Additionally, my Republican colleagues talk about the need to protect students' rights, but they knowingly support gutting the Office of Civil Rights and gutting the U.S. Department of Education, gutting or closing. That's the office that can protect students from discrimination against pregnancy. In reality, my colleagues aren't providing serious solutions to address the challenges of pregnant students. With the way things are in this administration, this bill would offer a bridge to nowhere. The bill purports to protect pregnant students against discrimination, but with no resources and no Department of Education and no Office of Civil Rights, there will be no way to hold schools accountable and no way to vindicate rights that were lost or violated. Additionally, just on Monday, the Trump administration released a proposed rule that rescinds a 2024 Child Care Development Fund final rule that capped the cost of child care and increased child care options for families. We've heard already this morning from colleagues on this side of the aisle how much affordable child care matters to families. If my colleagues want to encourage pregnancy and childbirth, a good first step would be joining me publicly in opposing this proposed rule because it would make child care more expensive for families, leaving student parents with fewer alternatives to stay in school and complete their education. Also, the big ugly bill is making higher education more expensive, and when you consider the rising costs of housing, groceries, healthcare, and utilities, that's likely to discourage rather than encourage college students to have children. Additionally, the Trump administration is transferring the Child Care Access Means Parents in Schools, or C-Campus program, from the Department of Education to HHS. This is a major transition that also risks undermining and destabilizing the child care support that is critical to student parents. The intent of this bill is clear. It's just another attempt to have politicians interfere in the intensely personal decision of when and whether to have a child, a decision that should be made by the pregnant student, not by members of Congress. Contraception is basic health care. We know that access to birth control is linked to women's greater educational and professional opportunities and increased lifetime earnings. We should not silence schools in their ability to provide information about sexual and reproductive health services, as this legislation does. So instead of pushing forward partisan legislation that fails to address the full healthcare needs of students and furthers an anti-abortion agenda, we should be working together to truly support students when they are faced with deeply personal health decisions. Also, Mr. Chairman, before I yield back, I would like to introduce into the record a letter dated January 7, 2026, from a long list of higher education advocates who are representing a diverse group of advocates and experts dedicated to advancing civil rights protections and institutional resources for pregnant and parenting students. They are sharing their opposition to the Pregnant Students' Rights Act, which they call a thinly veiled anti-abortion law that would not address the key barriers to pregnant students' educational attainment.
Without objection, the letters will be received.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I urge my colleagues to support my amendment providing students with comprehensive information and resources about reproductive health services, and I yield back the balance of my time.
I thank the gentlelady. Does the gentleman from Utah?
Mr. Chair, I withdraw my point of order.
The point of order, the reservation is withdrawn. Does anyone else seek recognition on the amendment? Representative Miller, do you wish to be recognized?
Yes.
You're recognized.
Thank you. I oppose this amendment. To clarify, this bill requires colleges and universities to inform pregnant students about the resources available to them and the accommodations guaranteed to them under Title IX. The bill is not intended to dictate to what extent schools provide information on reproductive health services or contraception. Title IX already includes abortion neutrality language that speaks to this issue, and nothing in this bill could be construed as overriding that language. In fact, accepting this amendment would imply that this bill somehow undermines the existing Title IX language, which would be a mistake. I urge my colleagues to oppose this unnecessary amendment and support the underlying bill, and I yield back.
I thank the gentlelady. Does any other member wish to be recognized? Gentleman from Virginia, the ranking member, Mr. Scott, do you wish to be
Move to strike the last word.
recognized for 5 minutes?
Mr. Chairman, on page 2, line 16, it talks about information for pregnant students to carry a baby to term, and for students who may become pregnant while enrolled in such institution to carry a baby to term. That's why the language is so important, to make sure it includes all information. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I would ask unanimous consent to enter into the record 2 articles that shows what happens when abortion bans are implicated. The 2 articles show that preventable deaths that are attributable to abortion bans. So if you've got dealing with misinformation, this is the kind of thing that can happen.
Without objection, they will be entered.
I yield back.
Hearing none. Thank the gentleman. Are there any other members who wish to be recognized to speak to this amendment? If not, the question is on the amendment by the gentlelady from Oregon, Ms. Bonamici. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. No. In the opinion of the chair, the noes have it, and the amendment is not agreed to. Record roll call is requested. Pursuant to the chair's previous announcement, this vote will be postponed. Are there any further amendments to the amendment in nature of a substitute to H.R. 6359? Does the gentlelady from Michigan wish to be recognized on an amendment?
I have an amendment at the desk, Mr. Chair.
The clerk will indicate the amendment.
Amendment to the amendment in the nature of a substitute to H.R. 6359, offered by Ms. Stevens of Michigan, identifier Stevens_AMD_03.
Is there a point of order requested?
Mr. Chair, I reserve a point of order.
A point of order is reserved. I now recognize the gentlelady from Michigan, Ms.
Your dear friend, Congresswoman
Dear
Stevens.
friend, Ms. Stevens.
It's okay, it's been a while. Mr. Chair, look, we've got H.R. 6359, the Pregnant Student Rights Act, and what a bill in terms of thinking about supporting pregnant women through an incredible journey on a college campus. One would think that we would hope to have daycare plans, affordable higher education, mental health services, career pathways, and the like. But as we evaluate this bill, it is very clear that one thing is missing as we see medical research, medical advancements, maternal care under attack, rising maternal mortality in this country because of the attacks on reproductive freedom. Where is the information for pregnant women on college campuses within this legislation in the event of a medically complex situation? Where's the information? Because that's left out of this bill. Miscarriage, stillbirth, abortion care. It's very interesting why this is left out. So my amendment would make clear that in addition to providing pregnant students with resources and information about carrying their pregnancy to term, this bill will not prevent schools from also providing information regarding pregnancy and related medical conditions, including miscarriage, stillbirth, and abortion, all of which are covered under Title IX. And if this bill is really just about giving pregnant students the information they need to make informed decisions, then my amendment should be adopted unanimously. However, I suspect the true aim is to continue to make it hard and to make it as hard as possible for American women to make their own healthcare decisions. And with that, Mr. Chair, I yield back.
I thank the gentlelady. Does anyone else seek recognition on the amendment?
Mr. Chairman?
Gentlelady from North Carolina, Ms. Adams, do you wish to be recognized?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I move to strike the last word in support of my colleague's amendment.
You're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This amendment is straightforward, necessary, and it's deeply grounded in existing law. Title IX has for decades protected students from discrimination based on pregnancy, childbirth, termination of pregnancy, miscarriage, stillbirth, and recovery from any of those conditions. This isn't new. This is settled law, and it applies regardless of political ideology or personal belief. What this amendment does is ensure that nothing in this bill is read to narrow those protections or to silence schools from providing students with complete, accurate information about their rights and available resources under Title IX. Right now, the underlying bill requires institutions to proactively provide information only to students who are pregnant and carrying a pregnancy to term. It does not require and could be interpreted to discourage schools from offering the same information to students who experience miscarriage, stillbirth, or who choose to terminate a pregnancy. Well, that is a serious omission. Pregnancy discrimination does not end when a pregnancy ends. In fact, for many students, this is when they need accommodations and support the most. Time to recover, flexibility with coursework, access to counseling, and protection from retaliation or academic penalty. Representative Stevens' amendment simply clarifies that schools remain free and fully permitted to provide students with information and resources related to all pregnancy-related medical conditions covered by Title IX. Nothing more, nothing less. This amendment does not require any school to provide or pay for abortion services. It does not override state law. It does not alter Title IX's neutrality provision. It does not interfere with the religious exemptions. What it does do is prevent Congress from unintentionally endorsing a selective interpretation of civil rights protections, one that elevates certain students while leaving others in the dark. At the same time, this bill directs students to file complaints with the Office of Civil Rights. Well, that office has seen its workforce cut in half, and most regional offices shuttered. Providing incomplete information while weakening enforcement is not a serious policy response. And so if this committee truly believes pregnant students deserve clarity and dignity and support, then we should not be afraid of completeness. We should not be afraid of accuracy, and we should not be afraid of the law as it exists today. This amendment ensures that students are not misled, that institutions are not chilled from doing the right thing, and that Title IX protections remain whole, not fragmented by ideology. I urge my colleagues to support this amendment, Mr. Chairman, and I yield back.
I thank the gentlelady. Are there any other members who wish to speak on this amendment? Seeing none, I now recognize myself for 5 minutes in opposition. Well, I appreciate the sincerity of my colleague from Michigan on this. I must oppose this amendment because a rule of construction is not necessary. Title IX regulations prohibit discrimination against students based on those students, and I quote, pregnancy and related conditions, unquote. Pregnancy and related conditions is defined to include students who suffer the termination of a pregnancy and students recovering from that termination. Because Title IX already includes protections for students who suffer from pregnancy-related issues, I urge my colleagues to oppose this amendment and support the underlying bill, and I yield back. Are there any other members who wish to speak? Seeing none, the question now comes in support or opposition to the amendment. All those in favor of this amendment from the gentlelady from Michigan, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no?
No.
In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it, and the amendment.
Mr. Chair, I would,
In the opinion, it's going to come to a point where I rip these pages out because they're so convoluted. Strike those words. In the opinion of the chair, the noes have it, and the amendment is not agreed to.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to ask for a recorded vote.
Recorded vote is requested. Pursuant to the chair's previous announcement, this vote will be postponed. Are there further amendments to the amendment in the nature of substitute to H.R. 6359? Representative Lee, do you have an amendment to offer?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I have an amendment at the desk.
I recognize the gentlelady to offer that amendment. Is there a point of order to be reserved?
Mr. Chair, I reserve point of order.
The clerk will report on amendment.
Amendment to the amendment in the nature of a substitute to H.R. 6359, offered by Ms. Lee of Pennsylvania, identifier Lee_AMD_02.
Point of order is reserved. And now I recognize the gentlelady from Pennsylvania, Ms. Lee, for 5 minutes in support of her amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Pregnant Students' Rights Act is nothing more than a veiled attempt by anti-abortion Republicans to elevate disinformation about students' reproductive health and rights. Republicans are claiming to care about pregnant students' access to health care, but don't be fooled. This bill just directs students to so-called pregnancy crisis centers that prey on vulnerable pregnant people. These sham centers peddle disinformation about pregnancy that prevent people from making informed health care decisions. My amendment would require schools to provide information on Medicaid, ACA coverage, Title X programs, SNAP, and WIC programs that can actually help students support parents as they navigate balancing their school and their caregiving. Republicans claim they want folks to have children, but then they oppose and gut the very programs that would actually help parents to care for that child. Passing policies that prevent access to quality, affordable health care, food, child care, housing, or education has become the MO here. Just last summer, Republicans cut over $1 trillion to Medicaid, SNAP, and student loans to fund tax breaks for billionaires. Over 3 million college students rely on Medicaid for health care coverage. Medicaid is also the largest single source for covering the cost of pregnancy care. And the roughly 2.2 million college students who are eligible for SNAP benefits will face even more challenges affording food for themselves, let alone formula for their infants. And instead of making college more affordable, Republicans gutted student loan programs. If Republicans actually wanted to support folks getting an education and becoming parents, they would support universal health care and free college. If Republicans wanted to support student parents, they would also support universal child care. Instead, the Department of Education has cut grants for C-Campus program, which provides on-campus child care for low-income students, and Trump and House Republicans are trying to eliminate the program altogether. Students don't need their colleges to dictate whether or not they should become parents. Students need resources that will allow them to get the most out of their education, whether or not they choose to be parents. The resources included in this bill will not help student parents deal with child care expenses or nutrition assistance or student debt or medical bills or comprehensive reproductive health care. I urge my colleagues to vote yes on my amendment if they care, as they claim, about student parents having access to information about programs that will support their needs and their child's health and well-being, including once their child is born. But we can't stop there. In addition to folks having access to information about federal safety net programs, we actually need to build a real federal safety net. So I thank you, and with that, I yield back.
I thank the gentlelady. Does the gentleman from Utah assist on a point of order?
Yes, Chair, I would withdraw my point of order.
Reservation is withdrawn. Does anyone else seek recognition on the amendment?
Mr. Chairman.
The Chairman Emeritus of this committee, Representative Fox from North Carolina, do you wish to speak on this amendment?
I do. I move to strike the last word.
You're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I oppose this amendment because it's duplicative of the bill and may actually limit options shared with students. Colleges and universities are compliance-oriented. The basic idea behind the Pregnant Students' Rights Act is that pregnant students should know the pregnancy-related resources available to them to carry a pregnancy to term successfully while remaining in school. These federal programs, such as SNAP, WIC, and Medicaid, would be covered under this broad requirement. However, by specifying certain federal programs, colleges might only include those and leave out other federal programs or resources that could be available in their local community. Doing so would unintentionally limit what information is shared with students. I urge my colleagues to support the underlying bill, reject the amendment, and I yield back.
I thank the gentlelady. Are there any others who seek recognition on this amendment? If not, the question is on the amendment by the gentlelady from Pennsylvania, Ms. Lee. All in favor, say aye. All opposed, no. No. In the opinion of the chair, the noes have it, and the amendment is not agreed to.
Mr. Chair, I request a recorded vote.
A roll call vote is ordered. Pursuant to the chair's previous announcement, this vote will be postponed. Are there any further amendments to the amendment in the nature of a substitute?
Mr. Chair, I have an amendment at the desk.
Representative Omar, do you seek to be recognized?
Yes, I have an amendment at the desk, Mr. Chair.
The clerk will report the amendment.
Amendment to the amendment in the nature of a substitute to H.R. 6359, offered by Ms. Omar, Minnesota, identifier Omar_AMD_05.
I reserve point of order.
A point of order is reserved. I now recognize the gentlelady from Minnesota to speak on her amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Once again, we are considering a bill that not only fails to provide true support for students, but is especially insincere given the choices over the past year. I was once a young pregnant student. My two older children were born while I was in college. I know very deeply and personally what the needs of these students are. And I know that if the current day policies of this administration and this majority were in place when I was in school, there is no doubt in my mind that I would have been set up for failure. Look at the reality that the Republicans are fighting for. Over $1 trillion in cuts to food stamps, health care, and student loan programs. A complete lack of meaningful wraparound services to assist the nearly 60% of students who experience food or housing insecurity today. And an administration that has tried to completely eliminate funds from C-Campus program that helps provide childcare for college students. Today, nearly 1 in 5 of all undergrad students are raising children. These students have to balance immense responsibilities while struggling to find affordable childcare. The role of government should be to make their lives easier, not unbearably hard and confusing. Yet the last fall, this administration chaotically cut off C-Campus programs at over a dozen colleges. Why? Because they decided those schools didn't pass their ideological purity test. My amendment requires additional information and explanation about whether schools have their C-Campus funds arbitrarily canceled by this administration. It is critical that students receive comprehensive information about all available choices and resources. It is even more critical that they receive tangible, consistent childcare accommodations should they need them. If my colleagues across the aisle are serious about truly supporting pregnant and parenting students, then they should join me in supporting this amendment. Thank you, and I yield back.
I thank the gentlelady. Does the gentleman continue to reserve his point of order?
I withdraw my point of order.
The reservation is withdrawn. Does anyone else seek recognition on the amendment?
Mr. Chairman?
Does the gentleman from Indiana seek recognition on the amendment?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to speak.
You're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate my colleagues' highlight of the child care access means parents and school partnership, the C Campus program, but I'm opposed to this amendment. This amendment would provide information on C Campus that is duplicative and even confusing to pregnant students. As part of their C Campus application, institutions must already show that they support the student participation in the program. Student outreach is already a requirement for any institution receiving C Campus grants. C Campus also specifically is designed to support low-income students as determined through Pell Grant eligibility, which may not apply to all pregnant students. This amendment also asks schools to provide information dating back 10 years. C Campus grants are given in 4-year cycles, meaning a student may receive information about an old grant cycle from years ago that has no relevance to her. This amendment also places a vague burden on institutions to describe the circumstances surrounding the discontinuation. There could have been a litany of reasons why a school did not receive another C Campus grant in the past 10 years, many of which have no relevance to the pregnant student. I would also like to highlight encouraging action taken by this administration to streamline C Campus through interagency agreements with HHS. As HHS has already oversees child care focused grants, this partnership will bring much needed efficiency and coherent guidelines to the execution of the C Campus program. Thank you, and I yield back.
I thank the gentleman. Is there further debate on the amendment? If not, the question is on the amendment by the gentlelady from Minnesota. All in favor say aye. All opposed, no. No. In the opinion of the chair, the noes have it, and the amendment is not agreed to.
I ask for recorded vote, Mr. Chairman.
A roll call vote is ordered. Pursuant to the chair's previous announcement, this vote will be postponed. Are there any further amendments to the amendment in the nature of a substitute? Representative Wilson from Florida, do you wish to offer an amendment?
Mr. Chairman, I have an amendment at the desk.
The clerk will report the amendment.
Amendment to the amendment in the nature of a substitute to H.R. 6359, offered by Ms. Wilson of Florida, identifier Wilson_AMD_04.
Does the gentleman?
I reserve point of order.
Point of order is reserved. I now recognize the gentlelady from Florida, Ms. Wilson, for 5 minutes in support of her amendment.
Students, including pregnant students, are protected under Title IX of the Education Amendments of 1972 from discrimination on the basis of sex in education programs that receive federal financial assistance. Title IX's longstanding regulations specifically prohibit discrimination based on a student's pregnancy, childbirth, false pregnancy, termination of pregnancy, or recovery from any of these conditions. Despite these broad protections, H.R. 6359 would amend the Higher Education Act to require institutions only to provide information about rights and resources to pregnant students who believe they were discriminated against because they chose to carry a pregnancy to term. The bill would also prohibit the Secretary of Education from requiring institutions of higher education to provide any additional information beyond what is listed in the bill, including fuller information related to Title IX. If H.R. 6359 becomes law, the Secretary could not require colleges to give students information about other critical topics, such as contraception, sexual and reproductive health, on and off-campus resources for students who miscarry or decide to have an abortion, even though Title IX protects all of these students. My amendment strikes this rule of construction language so that the Secretary of Education retains the authority to require institutions to provide additional information necessary to fulfill their obligations under Title IX for all pregnant students, regardless of pregnancy outcome. While this amendment would restore the Secretary's ability to ensure students receive complete information, it also exposes the elephant in the room. The current administration is dismantling the Department of Education, shifting critical programs to agencies with less expertise and weaker civil rights missions. President Trump's administration has undermined Title IX and civil rights enforcement by hollowing out the Office for Civil Rights, which is the office responsible for enforcing civil rights protections in education programs nationwide. This Congress and this Education Committee have stood by while the administration has weakened the Department of Education and eroded critical civil rights enforcement tools. This, after all, is the Education and Workforce Committee. We have failed to ensure that the Office for Civil Rights has the staff and capacity to enforce Title IX and other civil rights laws. And more importantly, we have failed to conduct meaningful oversight as this administration works to dismantle a cabinet-level department that Congress created by statute and that only Congress can fundamentally change. We owe our young people more than incomplete one-sided information that pushes Republicans' pro-life agenda while undermining students' reproductive rights. Adopt my amendment so that even if this bill becomes law, a future Secretary of Education, well, if there is a Department of Education, once this administration is over, can ensure that pregnant students receive information on all of their rights under Title IX, rights that can be meaningfully protected and enforced only by a restored Office for Civil Rights and a fully funded Department of Education. Students deserve no less, and we as a committee must make that happen. I urge adoption of my amendment, and I yield back.
The gentlelady's time has expired. Are there any others that wish to be recognized? The gentleman from Florida, Mr. Fine, do you wish to speak to the amendment?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I oppose this amendment, and I support the underlying bill, and I think the amendment, a lot of what we just heard, doesn't necessarily actually even relate to the bill. Pregnant students have certain rights and accommodations under Title IX, like excused absences for medical appointments, but students aren't always aware of their rights. I would hypothesize if you went to the average university in the United States, you'd have no trouble finding out plenty of information about how to get an abortion and how to get contraception. Why? Because that is the philosophy that those universities tend to propagate. It is the ability to have a child, to continue your education, to live a fulsome life. That is the problem that we are attempting to solve here. The Pregnant Student Rights Act addresses this information gap by requiring colleges and universities to inform all students of pregnant students' rights and accommodations. But what it doesn't do is limit what else they do. The lines of the bill that would simply be removed simply say nothing in this subsection shall be construed to authorize the Secretary to require the dissemination of additional information. Nothing in this subsection. There could be other subsections, there could be other statutes, there could be other laws. It simply limits what this piece of legislation does. The bill's rule of construction that this amendment seeks to remove is necessary to clarify an important point. The bill is intended to inform college students not to alter or establish additional rights beyond what already exists in Title IX. We need more babies in this world, not less. And so if this bill can help a pregnant mother understand how she can continue her education while bringing that new life into the world, that is something that we all should support. For that reason, I oppose the amendment. I support the underlying bill, and I yield back. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I thank the gentleman. Are there further debate on this amendment? The gentlelady, Ms. Hayes, do you wish to be recognized?
Yes.
You're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you. I'd like to strike the last word and just say, as someone who was a pregnant and parenting teen, much of the rhetoric that we're hearing is just not correct. I wasn't going to speak, but I have to respond to what the gentleman before me just said. As a student, when you seek help on campus, you are not directed to abortion services. I can tell you, as someone who has had to access that information, it is how to get good health care, what options are available on campus. But this idea that the only information students get is one-sided is just false. And if we are truly to do our job, we should making it so that students get all of the information and then be able to make the informed decision that works best in their situation. The fact that they think that only one set of information is appropriate shows you the problems with this bill. For every student, carrying a child is not their best or most viable option. And if that is the pathway or the road that we want to go down, I would suggest that my colleagues revisit many of the cuts that they have proposed to SNAP and childcare and health care and all of the things that would help these children. As my colleague said, we need more babies. Help those babies thrive, not just survive to full term. So for that and so many other reasons, I will I will be opposing this legislation. But it really is, I mean, we come in this committee week after week and hold hearings, and it really is not aimed at getting real solutions that will really help the American people and help pregnant and parenting teens or college students or students in general just thrive and get their degrees and help to support their families. With that, I yield back.
I thank the gentlelady. Are there any further members who wish to speak on the amendment? Seeing none, I recognize myself. Just to make sure it's very clear that there is another side to the story that is being totally left out. Yes, there will be SNAP cuts, there will be Medicaid cuts, but it's in the area of waste, fraud, and abuse. In fact, it can be shown, I think, very clearly, if you want to look at the facts, that there will be more dollars for those who actually need the funding. And that's the truth of the matter. Now, I don't expect everybody to agree with that, but that ought to be pointed out as well, because too often today already we've perpetrated that point of view, which is absolutely false. And there will be care, there will be resources for pregnant students as well. So, having said that, I now, and there's been no further debate, the question is on the amendment by the gentlelady from Florida, Representative Wilson. All in favor say aye. All opposed, no. No. In the opinion of the chair, the noes have it. Are there any further amendments? A roll call vote is ordered. Pursuant to the chair's previous announcement, this vote will be postponed. Are there any further amendments to the amendment in the nature of a substitute to H.R. 6359? There being no further amendments, we will now move to consideration of the next bill. The committee will now proceed to consideration of the bill H.R. 4307 for amendment. The bill was circulated in advance and printed copies are available. The clerk will designate the bill.
H.R. 4307, a bill to direct the Secretary of Labor to train certain employees of Department of Labor how to effectively detect and assist law enforcement in preventing human trafficking during the course of their official duties and for other purposes.
Without objection, the first reading of the bill is dispensed with. Without objection, the bill will be considered as read and open for amendment at any point, and any amendment offered shall be considered as read. Where's it out? I now recognize myself to offer an amendment in the nature of a substitute. The clerk shall designate the amendment in the nature of a substitute.
Amendment in the nature of a substitute to H.R. 4307, offered by Mr. Wahlberg of Michigan, identifier H.R. 4307 ANS_01.
Without objection, the amendment shall be considered original text for purposes of further amendment. The amendment in the nature of a substitute has already been distributed. I now recognize myself for 5 minutes to explain the amendment in the nature of a substitute to H.R. 4307, the Enhancing Detection of Human Trafficking Act. I would like to begin by thanking my friend and colleague, Congresswoman Lucy McBath, for her partnership on this important bipartisan legislation. H.R. 4307 ensures the Department of Labor has a framework in place to educate its employees on the best practices in detecting and referring cases of suspected human trafficking. Earlier versions of this bill passed the House unanimously in 2017 and 2024. Labor trafficking is the illegal exploitation of an individual for commercial gain. This abusive practice goes against our country's founding values of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Tragically, this crime is happening in communities across the country, affecting adult men and women, teenagers, and even, tragically, young children. DOL personnel have a particularly important vantage point for detecting human trafficking. Specifically, Wage and Hour Division and Occupational Safety and Health Administration employees have responsibility to identify potential noncompliance with employment and workplace laws. These DOL employees have a frontline opportunity to identify patterns of labor exploitation. Providing these employees with education on how to detect and respond to the signs of human trafficking is an important part of the larger comprehensive effort to eradicate this unthinkable crime. Specifically, H.R. 4307 directs DOL to educate appropriate staff on how to detect instances of human trafficking. It ensures personnel regularly receive information on current trafficking trends. It allows flexible education options, including in-class and virtual learning. It establishes a clear course of action for referring suspected instances of human trafficking to law enforcement, and it requires DOL to submit a report to Congress on employee education efforts and processes used to measure and track agency and law enforcement responses to human trafficking. The updated text incorporates technical assistance from DOL, and the ANS makes a technical change to the bill to improve clarity. Additionally, this bill retains an amendment accepted during the committee's consideration of the Enhanced Detection of Human Trafficking Act in 2024. This amendment specifies that the Secretary of Labor shall consider the training and education needs of WHD employees operating in a state with a significant increase in child labor, and it clarifies that training and education with respect to referrals to the Department of Justice shall be done in accordance with best practices for protecting the rights of human trafficking victims, including collaboration with victim advocacy organizations, federal agencies, and state and local officials. One of the biggest obstacles we face in the fight against human trafficking is lack of awareness. H.R. 4307 will ensure Department of Labor investigators and other employees are equipped with the knowledge they need to help catch traffickers and stop them from inflicting harm. I'd like to thank Congresswoman McBath again for her leadership on this bill, as well as many members of this committee who have supported it. I urge all members to support this bipartisan bill, and I yield back. Are there any other members who wish to be recognized for further discussion on the amendment in the nature of the substitute? I recognize Representative McBath for her 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chairman Wahlberg, and also Ranking Member Scott. I'd like to speak in support of the amendment in the nature of the substitute. Whether it is forced labor in a sweatshop or sexual slavery, human trafficking is truly reprehensible. It has no place in the United States or anywhere else on earth, and I am proud to be working in a bipartisan way to protect those who need it most. God calls on each of us to care for the least of these. And I believe that that is the intent of the bill that Chairman Wahlberg and I ask our colleagues to support today. Traffickers prey upon the most vulnerable in our society. They specifically target single women and their children. They target low-wage workers, people who may be new to our country or to the language, and then trap them in situations knowing that their victims have fewer resources and maybe nowhere to turn to for help. They prey on people who are just looking for the opportunity to support themselves through hard work and earn enough to pass a better quality of life down to their kids. It is wrong, and it goes against everything that this country stands for. The Enhanced Detection of Human Trafficking Act will ensure that employees at the Department of Labor are able to identify and protect victims and assist in holding perpetrators accountable for these truly reprehensible crimes. We all agree that this is a problem worth addressing, but we also need to be doing this and doing what is making sure that there are enough people staffing these enforcement agencies so that someone is there to help people when they truly need it. We must ensure that every victim's story is heard, that every trafficker knows in the back of their mind that they will be brought to justice. But that can't happen when the very people who are tasked with safeguarding the victims we are trying to protect with this bill are fired or given massive caseloads that will take months or even years for them to work through. As we all know, the Department of Labor is closing offices and asking enforcement agencies to do more with less. When victims are asking why is it taking so long for them to get justice, they don't want to hear our excuses. They don't want to be told that preventing what happened to them is simply not a priority to this government. They want to be taken seriously. They want justice. And the decisions made by the Trump administration are making it harder for victims to get the justice that they so badly deserve. It's an honor to work with you, Chairman Walberg, on this important issue, and I thank you for your many years of hard work on this bill, even before I got here. I look forward to supporting it here today and getting this signed into law. I urge all of my colleagues, all of us, in a bipartisan manner, let's just do what's right. And I yield back.
I thank the gentlelady. Does the gentleman, the ranking member, the gentleman from Virginia, Mr. Scott, wish to be recognized on the amendment?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I move to strike the last word.
You're recognized.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, the Enhancing Detection of Human Trafficking Act requires the Department of Labor to provide training and continuing education to Department of Labor employees on how to detect and assist criminal law enforcement in detecting human trafficking. So I urge my colleagues to support the bill, and I want to thank you and the gentlelady from Georgia, Ms. McBath, for your leadership. But it warrants noting that many DOL employees already receive training on how to identify and report human trafficking, including Wage and Hour Division investigators and staff at the International Labor Affairs Bureau, ILAB. The office in that agency's child labor, forced labor, and human trafficking, which conducts vital supply chain trafficking and documents the current situation of child labor, forced labor, and forced child labor around the world. According to the most recent data, Department of Labor's Wage and Hour Division, quote, worked with criminal law enforcement agencies in fiscal year 2023 on 44 human trafficking cases by making referrals, receiving referrals for investigation under the Wage and Hour Division laws, and assisting with the computation of restitution for victims. The Department of Labor has an important role to play in combating trafficking in persons in the United States and abroad, and in collaboration with federal, state, and local and international partners. Unfortunately, the bill does not authorize funding to the Department of Labor to implement the training or complete the required annual report. The bill also does not authorize or protect funding for any existing programs fighting human trafficking. So make no mistake, funding is necessary. President Trump's fiscal year 2026 budget request would cut appropriations for the Wage and Hour Division by nearly 10% and significantly reduce staffing. In addition, President Trump's budget would reduce appropriations for ILAB by 38%. So outside of DOL, the Trump administration has ended a U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services program which encouraged undocumented workers to speak out on labor violations, and Trump-directed RIFs have decimated the State Department's Office to Monitor and Combat Trafficking in Persons, known as the TIP Office, which combats human sex and labor trafficking. The Democrats have been working to improve the situation. H.R. 3997, the Protecting Children Act, led by myself and the gentlelady from Minnesota, which increases civil monetary penalties, CMPs, and criminal penalties for child labor and workplace safety violations that harm children. The bill expands government capacity for enforcement and research. It creates a private right of action for children harmed by child labor violations and facilitates rulemaking to identify occupations too hazardous for children, requires ongoing research and improved statistical programs, and requires an annual report on child labor and children's occupational illnesses and injuries, and authorized grants for training and victim support. Another bill, the Child Labor Exploitation Accountability Act, led by the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Kesar, H.R. 2822 in the last Congress, leverages the USDA procurement to disincentivize labor standard violations, including child labor. And finally, the Combating Child Labor Act, led by the gentleman from Michigan, Mr. Kildee, in the last Congress, which increases civil monetary penalties and criminal penalties for child labor law violations and requires an annual report. This markup is a missed opportunity to put our money where our mouths are and invest in real measures to put a stop to human trafficking. Nonetheless, this bill constitutes a major step in the right direction, so I encourage my colleagues to vote yes on the bill and look forward to working with my colleagues across the aisle in making more meaningful changes to stop the scourge of human trafficking. Then, Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
I thank the gentleman. Does the gentleman from Utah wish to be recognized on this amendment?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Human trafficking is one of the most vile crimes of our day. It's estimated that nearly 28 million people around the world are victims of human trafficking. Unfortunately, as insidious as it is, too many of our fellow Americans have either decided to close their eyes or have accepted this as normal. Over the previous administration's 4 years, we watched as between 300 and 400,000 unaccompanied children were transported through our open southern borders. I'd like to make clear that unaccompanied is not a general or casual term. It is a specific legal meaning designating this population as vulnerable with an elevated risk of trafficking and exploitation. These are vulnerable, unprotected little girls and little boys, children under 18 years old, children with no lawful immigration status in the United States, and children with no parents or legal guardians present in the United States who are available to provide and care physical custody. Aside from this vulnerable group of immigrant children, we had, in 2024, within the United States, another 12,000 trafficking cases involving over 21,000 victims. Excuse me. This critical legislation seeks to combat human trafficking by implementing an educational program for the Department of Education, Department of Labor employees so they can better detect trafficking and assist law enforcement. With this training, employees will be able to more effectively root out instances of human trafficking and help victims gain their freedom. We can no longer close our eyes or act as this evil is normal. Thank you to my colleagues on both sides of the aisle. I support this bipartisan legislation that brings us closer to eliminating trafficking, and I urge all of my colleagues to vote yes. Thank you, and I yield back.
I thank the gentleman. Does the lady from Minnesota wish to be recognized?
Mr. Chairman, I move to strike the last word.
You're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you. First, I want to thank Chairman Wahlberg and Congresswoman McBath for their long-standing leadership in the fight against human trafficking. I am proud to support the Enhancing Detection of Human Trafficking Act. This bill would improve training for the Department of Labor employees to better identify and defer cases of human trafficking. And I appreciate the inclusion of my amendment from last Congress in the base text of the bill. My language makes sure that the states experiencing spikes in child labor violations receive targeted training resources. It would also require agency consultation with victim advocacy groups so that our response is survivor-centered and informed by the people doing this work on the ground. These are common sense provisions that make this piece of legislation more effective. But while this bill is a big step in the right direction, I hope it is not the last. If we want to end the scourge of forced labor and human trafficking, training alone is not enough. We need to support and invest in the capacity to go after bad actors and to protect survivors. That starts with fully funding enforcement at DOL, such as the Wage and Hour Division, and strengthening our labor laws to reflect today's challenges. That also means finally authorizing the Bureau of International Labor Affairs, or ILAP, an office that is critical to preventing forced labor abroad and protecting workers and responsible businesses here at home. This is why I support Congressman DeSaulnier's amendment and this bill to do just that. And finally, we need real oversight. We have yet to hold a hearing on child labor. Let's change that, Mr. Chairman. We owe it to the victims, to the workers, to the children whose lives and futures are being put at risk. I urge all of my colleagues to support this important bill, and I hope that we can all commit to continuing to work together to ensure the safety and dignity of all workers in this country. Thank you, and I yield back.
I thank the gentlelady. Does the gentlelady from North Carolina, Ms. Adams, wish to be recognized?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I move to strike the last word in support of the
Recognized.
bill. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do rise in support of Chairwoman McBath and Chair Wahlberg's bill to ensure that all Department of Labor employees are trained to detect signs of human trafficking. In this country, untold thousands are trafficked into forced labor every year. These people, often the least among us, face horrifying working conditions, cannot control their own wages if they're provided any in the first place, and are restricted from leaving their workplaces. All people deserve a living wage and freedom from oppression by their employer. I'm pleased that my colleagues have introduced legislation to address this issue. This is a common sense bipartisan bill, and I'm hopeful that it will be reported favorably out of this markup. Although I support this bill, I'm not convinced that House Republicans are serious about combating human trafficking. Inspectors at the Wage and Hour Division are already trained to detect signs of human trafficking and already refer suspected trafficking cases to local, state, and federal law enforcement officials. We have teams of people on the ground working to combat trafficking, but House Republicans have routinely cut funding for wage and hour. Last year, Secretary Chavez de Ramir was in this room justifying a budget request to cut hundreds of staff at the Wage and Hour Division. And what did my colleagues on the other side of the aisle do? They cheered her on. And so if we want to combat human trafficking, we need people on the ground. Cutting wage and hour and OSHA, regardless of the training requirements in this bill, will cut lifelines for people trapped in forced labor. To make matters worse, the Department of Justice is currently withholding $90 million of congressionally appropriated funding to support victims of human trafficking. And so if my colleagues on the other side of the aisle are serious about combating human trafficking, then they should join Democrats to demand the release of these funds. And while I do support this bill, we must recognize that fighting human trafficking requires resources. So I encourage all of my colleagues to work on legislation that will provide the funding necessary to stop human trafficking. Mr. Chair, I yield back.
I thank the gentlelady. Are there any other members who wish to discuss this amendment in nature of a substitute? There being no further discussion on the amendment in the nature of a substitute, the committee will move to consideration of amendments. Are there any members who would like to offer amendments?
Mr. Chairman, I have an amendment at the desk.
I recognize the gentleman from California for an amendment. Would the clerk identify or report the amendment?
Amendment to the amendment in the nature of a substitute to H.R. 4307, offered by Mr. DeSaulnier of California, identifier AMD_02_2026.
I reserve point of order.
Point of order is reserved. I now recognize the gentleman from California, Mr. DeSaulnier, for 5 minutes in support of his amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, my amendment would officially establish the Bureau of International Labor Affairs, ILAB, within the U.S. Department of Labor. For nearly 80 years, ILAB has promoted a fair global playing field for workers and businesses in the United States and around the world by enforcing trade commitments, strengthening international labor standards, and fighting against child labor, forced labor, and human trafficking. ILAB's annual reports and international product lists identify inhumane and unethical labor practices within the supply chain so that appropriate remedial measures can be taken. ILAB's work is critical to the Department of Labor's current efforts to combat human trafficking, particularly through the Bureau's Office of Child Labor, Forced Labor, and Human Trafficking. While ILAB receives funding every year through the annual appropriations process, it has never been formally authorized, bringing uncertainty and unpredictability to its work. I'm proud to be the author of a bill, the Bureau of International Labor Affairs Authorization Act, which, like my amendment, would formally authorize ILAB at the Department of Labor. Given the Bureau's very important work, I urge my colleagues to support this amendment, and I yield back. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I thank the gentleman. Mr. Scott, would you like to speak to this amendment?
Sure. Move the second last word.
You're recognized.
Mr. Chairman, H.R. 4307, the Enhanced Detection of Human Trafficking Act, requires the Department of Labor to provide training and continuing education to Department of Labor employees on how to detect and assist criminal law enforcement in detecting human trafficking. but this bill does not authorize or protect funding for any existing programs fighting human trafficking. This amendment would authorize the Bureau of International Labor Affairs, and ILAB, an agency first formed in 1947, and which acts as the principal U.S. agency funding trade-related labor technical assistance projects for the first time in history. ILAB is uniquely positioned to oversee the supply chain security and resilience, and including promoting human rights in global supply chains. President Trump's FY 2026 budget would reduce appropriations for ILAB by 38%. The ILAB produces annual findings on the worst forms of child labor as required by the Trade and Development Act of 2000, the list of goods produced by child labor or forced labor, which was mandated by the Trafficking Victims Protection Reauthorization Act of 2018, and the list of products produced by forced or indentured child labor, all crucial resources for those hoping to eradicate human trafficking. Authorizing ILAB, this amendment ensures that we invest in real measures to unearth evidence of exploitation and put a stop to human trafficking. So I encourage my colleagues to vote yes on the bill and yes on this amendment. I yield back.
I thank the gentleman. And the points are noted. Mr. Desaulniers, do you wish to withdraw your amendment?
Mr. Chairman, given your past interest and efforts with us and with the authors of the overall effort, and your interest in ILAB specifically, I hope you will commit to continuing to work together on this important issue so that the Bureau can continue its great work for many years to come, and the accomplishments that I know we all share to stop these awful acts. I now ask unanimous consent to withdraw my amendment and look forward to working with you.
I thank the gentleman. The amendment was withdrawn, and yes, we will continue to discuss. Are there any other members who wish to offer amendments? Does the gentlelady from North Carolina, Ms. Adams, wish to offer an amendment?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I have an amendment at the desk, Adams NC _ 564.
The clerk will report the amendment.
Amendment to the amendment in the nature of a substitute to H.R. 4307, offered by Ms. Adams of North Carolina, identifier Adam NC _ 564.
Mr. Owens, a point of order is reserved. I now recognize the gentlelady from North Carolina, Ms. Adams.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
We're not going to add any marriages here or changes, so.
Thank you. My amendment would add a new section to the Enhancing Detection of Human Trafficking Act, which directs the Secretary of Labor to establish a national emphasis program on human trafficking. National emphasis programs direct the Department of Labor's resources to the most pressing issues facing working people. We know these programs work. The National Emphasis Program on heat, lead, and combustible dust have improved workplace safety and saved lives. I appreciate the goals of the underlying bill, but I do not believe that it has the teeth to meaningfully address widespread human trafficking and forced labor. The Department of Labor is chronically underfunded and, in my opinion, is struggling to protect working people from hazards. The wages in our division is a 50-year staffing low, is at a 50-year staffing low. And OSHA only has enough investigators to inspect every workplace in the United States once every 186 years. Once every 186 years. And so if we want the department to take a more active role in detecting human trafficking, then we need to give it more resources. This amendment simply directs the Department of Labor to emphasize the prevention of human trafficking in its inspections of workplaces and authorizes additional funding to make that happen. I encourage all of my colleagues, even those who routinely vote to cut the Department of Labor's budget, to take the threat off of human traffic, to take the threat of human trafficking seriously. Mr. Chairman, I urge my colleagues to support my amendment, and I yield back.
I thank the gentlelady. Your points are noted. Do you wish to withdraw your amendment?
Mr. Chairman, I'll withdraw my amendment, but I certainly hope that as we move forward, that you would consider working with me on this issue. I'll withdraw the amendment.
Thank you. As always, we are committed to working toward solutions, and that is the promise that I can make.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Are there any other amendments to be offered? Seeing no, I would call for a vote. There being no further amendments, the question now occurs on the amendment in the nature of a substitute to H.R. 4307. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it, and the amendment in the nature of substitute as amended, nature of substitute is agreed to. Further action on H.R. 4307 being postponed. Pursuant to the previous order, the chair declares the committee in recess, subject to call of the chair. We expect to reconvene promptly due to votes coming, as indicated, at 2:30. We will promptly reconvene at 2 p.m. Thank you. The committee now stands in recess.
Mr. Scott will be fine.
Are you all set? The committee will now reconvene and come to order following our recess. We'll proceed to postpone requests for recorded votes. We'll now be voting on 5 amendments to the amendment in the nature of a substitute to H.R. 6359. The amendment offered by Representative Bonamici. Amendment number 1. A recorded vote is requested. Members will record their votes using the electronic voting system. The chairman intends to vote no. Have all members been recorded who wish to be recorded? Do any members wish to change their vote? Will the clerk please close the board and announce the tally?
Mr. Chairman, on this vote, there are 13 yeas and 21 nays.
The amendment is not adopted. We now move to the next amendment by Representative Stevens, amendment number 3. Recorded vote is requested. Members will record their votes using the electronic voting system. Open the vote, please. Have all members been recorded who wish to be recorded? Do any members wish to change their vote? The clerk will please close the vote and announce the tally.
Mr. Chairman, on this vote, there are 15 yeas and 21 nays.
The amendment is not adopted. The next amendment is Representative Lee. Lee, number 2. A recorded vote is requested. Members will record their votes using an electronic voting system. The clerk will open the vote. Have all members been recorded who wish to be recorded? Do any members wish to change their vote? Hearing none, will the clerk please close the vote and announce the tally?
Mr. Chairman, on this vote, there are 15 yeas and 21 nays.
The amendment is not adopted. We now move to the Omar Amendment. Omar, number 5. A recorded vote is requested. Members will record their votes using the electronic voting system. The clerk will open the vote. Have all members been recorded who wish to be recorded? Do any members wish to change their vote? Hearing none, will the clerk please close the vote and announce the tally?
Mr. Chairman, on this vote, there are 15 yeas and 21 nays.
The amendment is not adopted. We now move to the amendment by Representative Wilson. Wilson, number 4. A recorded vote is requested. Members will record their votes using the electronic voting system. The clerk will open the vote. Have all members been recorded who wish to be recorded? Do any members wish to change their vote? Hearing none, will the clerk please close the vote and announce the tally?
Mr. Chairman, on this vote, there are 15 yeas and 21 nays.
The amendment is not adopted. The question now occurs on the amendment in the nature of a substitute to H.R. 6359. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it, and the amendment in the nature of a substitute is agreed to. I hereby move that the committee report the bill H.R. 6359 to the House of Representatives with amendment and with the recommendation that the amendment be agreed to and the bill do pass. The question now occurs on the chair's motion. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no.
No.
In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it, and the motion is agreed to. A recorded vote is requested. Members will record their votes using the electronic voting system. The clerk will open the vote. Have all members been recorded who wish to be recorded? Do any members wish to change their vote? Hearing none, will the clerk please close the vote and announce the tally?
Mr. Chairman, on this vote, there are 21 yeas and 15 nays.
The ayes have it, and the motion is agreed to. H.R. 6359 as amended, and the accompanying materials shall be transmitted to the House of Representatives. The chair notes for the record that a quorum is present. I hereby move that the committee report the bill H.R. 4307 to the House of Representatives with amendment and with the recommendations that the amendment be agreed to and the bill do pass. The question now occurs on the chair's motion. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it, and the motion is agreed to. Recorded vote is requested. Members will record their votes using the electronic voting system. The chair will intend to vote yes, right? The clerk will open the vote. Have all members been recorded who wish to be recorded? Do any members wish to change their vote? Hearing none, will the clerk please close the vote and announce the tally?
Mr. Chairman, on this vote, there are 36 yeas and 0 nays.
The ayes have it, and the motion is agreed to. H.R. 4307 as amended, and the accompanying materials shall be transmitted to the House of Representatives. The chair notes for the record the quorum is present. I ask unanimous consent that staff be authorized to make the necessary technical and conforming changes to today's bills. Without objection, so ordered. Pursuant to House Rule 11, Clause 2L, I give notice that all members have the requisite number of days to file supplemental, minority, additional, or dissenting views. Without objection, so ordered. Without objection, any members who wish to insert materials into the record may do so by submitting them to the committee clerk electronically by the end of the day today. If there's no further business before the committee, without objection and with great appreciation, the committee stands adjourned.